Hello and welcome to the Men's Lifeline Academy, where we bring on scholars who are men who are transforming the lives of themselves and taking a step above to help other men. And today I have Norm, one of our first guests ever from the UK. So this is exciting how this podcast is just branching out and really being a help. So Norm's going to tell us his story, how he came to be, and here's a little bit of insight. He's helping men become godly and shaping their bodies. And Norm, floor is yours. How you doing, my
Yeah,
brother?
I'm doing well, thanks, Zach. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. People know me from X, from Instagram. Maybe I'm just in the process of building out my business to help Christian men kind of get in shape the biblical way, not for ego, but so we can steward our bodies well for the glory of God. I think it's one of those things that gets overlooked a lot in churches and sermons. It doesn't really get preached on very often, but with the rise of so many diseases in the modern world, I think it's a necessary one, and that's kind of what I'm about. So
That's awesome. So what kind of lifestyle is more of like a biblical base? Because in the Bible, there's a lot of different lifestyles, with eating and how to eat and how to prepare food. So how do
Mhm.
you take what's in the biblical principle and attach it to that science principle that we know today of what foods are healthy first, which ones are not? So how do you take that in connection?
Mhm. Yeah, I take a approach to God before science. In my eating, my lifestyle, everything is always God before science. If the science backs up what God gave us, then that's a good statement. If the science contradicts what God gave us, then I have an issue with the science. So for an example, is like not many people know, but I'm a big fan of raw milk. In Scotland, I can't get it, but when I'm away, I try to get it. Whereas the science would tell you that it's harmful and it's going to kill you and it causes X, Y, Z. That's where we have something that God gave us that science is twisted to fit their narrative, and then it becomes almost against God. We look at like the land of milk and honey is biblical. Like, they didn't. It doesn't say the land of pasteurized, processed, packaged milk. Just says the land of milk and honey. And back in the day, our ancestors would have just ate it. So that's where I slightly differ. But I think when science backs up what God states, that's when you have a great combination. And I think science should work in sync with God, not against God. But now you have a rise of science that is becoming God, where people worship science like it is God, and they take everything science says as the truth, and they never question it. They never think for themselves. So that's where a lot of my stuff comes from. Like I just for Christmas, I just bought the new book by Josh Axe, Dr. Josh Axe. It's called the Biblio Diet,
Mm.
and it's basically based on the Bible and the health principles in it. It's super good. I recommend it to anybody listening that wants a biblical take to their health, where they don't need to be neurotic, they don't need to not have desserts and stuff. There's just ways of making stuff that's ancient and traditional, and it takes like a biblical based approach. So for me, it's like to simplify it all. I've seen some of my clients lose like 20 pounds in just six
Oh,
weeks, just from eating whole foods and just from walking more, just from doing basic lifestyle changes. I'm not like a guy like you'll see the Brian Johnsons on the internet who tell you to, take 100 supplements a day and make sure you get your olive oil, it's extra virgin, and make sure he's got like tanning beds and red light therapy. Like, I'm not into that. Like, if you want to go that route, fine, but to me, that's just more of like a cage. It just traps you in, and you just get locked in this cage of how to prolong your life rather than actually just living your life. How can I not get diseases rather than just living the life? And I think when you align yourself with God's design, with God's creation, you ultimately prevent most diseases. Because if you look at like the science and the literature, like most diseases we see today, like all these different forms of cancer that arise, like diabetes
mhm.
and like all the stuff that goes on, has never existed before. So it's only like the last 75 to 100 years where these diseases have actually come to life. Um, and I believe a lot of these diseases are taking members of the church far too soon, way too soon. Like my grandpa himself, he wasn't a believer, but he committed suicide earlier this year. So back in April,
Oh, geez.
um, and he didn't really, he knew a lot of information, but he just never took any action on it. And eventually his health caught up to me. He had two bad knees, a really bad back for years. Like I'm talking 10, 25, 30 years. And he never did anything about it. He never got help. I'd try and say, hey, you should do this. You should maybe look at this. And he wasn't interested by that point. And by that time, he went on antidepressants because he was getting really bad depressed. Then it's downhill from there because, again, antidepressants don't necessarily work. They just mask the symptom. That's at least my perspective on them. And so, that was kind of one of my main motivating factors. Was why when I started my business, I was like, well, I want to make Christian men godly and masculine and healthy again. Because without the men, then you don't, not saying men are better, but Adam came before Eve. If we don't have strong men, then you can't have strong women who can raise their families and, do what they're called to do. But if we don't have healthy, godly men who are going to be around for, 70, 80, 90, 100 years to, show the next generations what it looks like to be a man, then you have guys like me who thought that masculinity was in money, or how much money they could make, or how much women they could sleep around with, or pornography and lust and all these things, and alcohol and partying. And then you have like this culture of men who don't know what it's like to be a man, because all the men that came before them are 75-year-old men in wheelchairs who are overweight and they've got dementia and they can barely remember a thing. So that's, and I like to say that it comes down to the devil in the details, the devil in disguise, where we know that Satan runs this world inside and out, technically. He even runs the food industry. The first sin was around food. It was with Eve in the Garden of Eden. It was an apple. So the first sin is a food sin, and the first sin is still tempting a lot of people today, even Christians. We see like gluttony. We see like over 45% of churchgoers are overweight. And it's like this big deal where it comes to me where it's like, I believe that as Christian, especially men, we should be the healthiest, strongest, wisest men to ever live. People should be coming to us and saying, why does your life look so much different than mine? They should see Christ through our lives, through our bodies, through our actions, through how we live. So I know I went in a bit of a tangent there, but I just think that needed to be said. It's very important to me. So like a biblical based approach, I take it to the whole of my life. Like I try and have a Sabbath on Sundays. I try and rest. I try and shut my laptop off. Again, I'm not perfect. I'm not here preaching perfection, but I try. But when it comes to diet, I will just typically eat whole foods. I'm not saying you can't ever eat out again, but if you go out, let's order steak and potatoes, or let's order something that's typically whole foods. I don't eat cereal. I don't go for the crappy protein bars filled with artificial sweeteners. Like I just try and eat whole foods, and I think that serves me best. People probably think I'm weird and crazy and XYZ, but once you have gotten yourself in shape, once you have then improved your energy levels, your focus, your confidence, like there's no going back for me. Like I will never go back to eating the standard American diet where it's like sodas and chips and fries. It's like there's no nutrients, there's no color to the plate, there's no energy in the food, and that's why you just don't feel great. Like I, on the back of like getting myself in shape, aligning myself with God's design, eating whole foods, I've started 2 businesses. One of them is yet to be published and gone, but like I just have that much energy. Like I will work from 8, 9 o'clock in the morning to 6, 7, 8 p.m. at night some nights. I'll be editing my videos, I'll be posting on Instagram or X, or I'll be, studying somebody else's work. Like I just physically don't really want to shut down. But when I do shut down, like I'm out as well. Like I sleep like a baby every single night. That used to be a bad thing for me. Like I used to go to sleep at like 9 or 10 and I'd be still awake at 11 or 12 or midnight. I'd wake up like an hour during the night. Like I just couldn't sleep at all. So when you have this mismatch where God designed you to live a certain way and you're living way, 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 way out of what he designed you to live, you have this mismatch where you have infertility on the rise, you have chronic sleep deprivation on the rise, obesity's on the rise, cancer's on the rise, like everything that shouldn't be on the rise is on the rise. So you can probably hear the passion in my voice because it's something I'm so passionate about, because I used to live distant from God's creation, even as a Christian. I called myself a Christian, read my Bible for 2-3 years, but I'm still overweight, I'm still out of shape, I'm still low energy, brain fog, and I say it because when you come back into connection with God and the way he designed us to live, it blew my mind, put it that way. I was like, wow, like this is life. Like this is the energy I'm supposed to have. This is the focus. This is the discipline. This is the life that God created me to have, is this life full of purpose and full of like spending time in his creation, not just like reading his word and getting to know him, but also like what did he give us, to steward well, our bodies. And it's biblical. We're commanded to, 1 Corinthians 6:19-20, it says, honor your bodies as temples of God, So, yeah, that's kind of my take on the biblical based approach.
Well, that's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
So no, that's a lot of good information, because the most important thing and the most important asset we have is our health.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the one thing we can't always get back. So especially with you experiencing that from, unfortunately, the loss of your grandfather, to eating cereal and a lot of things that were unhealthy, to now going to the other about biblical principles of eating healthy. What was that kind of turning point in your life where you made the decision not just to read the Bible, but take additional steps to making sure you're taking care of your full self versus half yourself?
Yeah,
So
that's a good question.
kind of like what a lot of people do with a book. They'll read the book, they'll say it's a good book, and then there's the question becomes, well, how do you apply this to your life? So when was
Mhm.
that turning point for you when you began actually applying the principles in the Bible to your life?
Yeah. So it's not an overnight process.
Right.
And I think a lot of people say that justification comes first. Like, okay, you justify that Jesus is your Lord, then the sanctification comes after, where He starts to purge everything out of your life. So for me, it was like lust, then it was like gluttony, then it was laziness, and again, like I'm not perfect with any of this. I'm still learning through it. There'll be some days, especially around the holidays, where I maybe eat too much, and I should
Mhm.
maybe eat slightly less. But because it's this whole food approach, I get away with it. I don't put on 5 pounds, 10 pounds over the holidays. I'm fine. Um, that's a different story. But in terms of the kind of light bulb moment was 4 years ago in December for me. I picked up a Bible for the first time. My mum was kind of Christian. She grew up at church and all this sort of stuff, but she never really forced it on us. So I grew up with um, a basic household of what was right and what was wrong. And
Mhm.
it's wrong to murder, to steal, to lie, to cheat, all the stuff that is also in the Bible that we base our lives on. I also grew up with this is how you should live your life. You should go to college and get a job, and you just stay in the path. Blah blah blah. Again, different topic. But 4 years ago, I asked my mum for a Bible because I just remember feeling so lost, especially after like the whole COVID pandemic. There was a big, a lot of isolation in there for me, where I was like, well, I think that the Bible says it well. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." And for the first time in my life, I was finally still. Because for years I almost made it pro soccer. I was really good at soccer. I was
Oh,
really dedicated to soccer for 4 or 5 years at a good level. But I'd been playing all my life since I was like 3 years old. It's what I always wanted to do. So I gave it my all to try and go for it, especially here in Scotland, where the level is good, but it's not. You don't need to be as good as the world. But then as you get, you slowly climb. You want to keep going, obviously. So that plays a lot in my story as well. And so yeah, I'm going on a tangent there again, but I remember just feeling so lost. And for years of my life, I'd just been too busy for God. Um, and then a couple of injuries of mine came around when I was playing soccer back in 2019, and I was like, well, I started getting into praying. I was like, okay, I'm just going to pray because like I just had so much bad luck with injuries in soccer that they were stealing me from becoming a pro soccer player. I eventually didn't get it. I didn't get the pro contract, which looking back now, I'm grateful for. But if you told me 6 years ago, now I'd be like, I was distraught. Like I remember crying home the whole way in the car. When I got told, hey, this is it, it's over. Like everything you worked for is done.
wow.
So it was a tough one for me. But again, looking back, I'd rather be where I am now than be a pro soccer player and never know Jesus Christ. Obviously, you can be both, but for me, that's just where my story kind of entangled itself a little bit. So I asked my mum for a Bible in 2021. I was so lost. I was so run down with anxiety. I had this after COVID. I developed this really weird like germ thing where like I couldn't touch a door handle or a TV
Oh, wow.
remote, or I couldn't sit on a chair without putting like a cloth down, thinking like it was going to be like covered in germs and I was going to die. It was like really bad. It was definitely like a spiritual attack for me, especially not knowing the truth, not knowing Christ. That I was susceptible to the attack. So looking back now, like, it doesn't bother me at all. Like, I can shake your hand and give you a hug, like, even if I don't know you, like, it's no big deal. But back then, it was like, yeah, that was all my mind could think about was like germs. Like, I can't do this. Like, I even remember at one point using my feet to change the channel on the remote control. Like,
Oh,
that's like
really?
my feet with socks on. Like, it's really, really bad. Um, and so for since COVID started in like March 2020 to all the way to the end of 2021, I was just in this bubble of anxiety, depression. I didn't want to go out. I got kind of overweight. I was really bad into pornography and lust to try and cope with all the emotions, and it just got this hole that just became deeper and deeper and deeper. And I was like, oh, I just can't do this any longer. Some people get to the bottom of the pit and then they just stay there. Like some people will be, I don't know, say they'll rather just come home and have a couple of glasses of wine every night for the rest of their life. Where for me,
Mhm.
I couldn't come home and just keep watching pornography every night to try and make myself feel better because it was just making me feel worse. And so I remember just being at such a low point where I realized that there must be something else to life. This is not life. Like me being depressed. It just wasn't fun. So I asked my mum for a Bible out of nowhere. I don't know why. I think I came across some videos on like Christian Instagram and Christian Twitter of these like super happy, joyful Christians like preaching the word, and I was like, well, this is like, they're so happy. Like, what do they have that I don't? Like, why are they happy and I'm sitting here like wanting to bawl my eyes out and run away? Because there was some
Mhm.
nights where I almost like I didn't want to be here. Like I never attempted suicide or I never thought about it deeply, but there was most nights I questioned like, why am I here? Like why don't I just kind of run away? You know, that was kind of my mindset. And so I asked my mother for the Bible. I put it on the shelf for 4 months until April of 2022, and then that's when I really started opening it up. I was like, I can't do this any longer. Like I'm physically addicted to lust and gluttony. I am covered in anxiety. I have depression. Like I'm so isolated. I'm so broken down. And now coming up to it'll be 4 years in April since I first opened the Bible. Like, you know, just changed my life completely. I remember I technically got saved on a golf course. I've told this story a few times, where I had this PE exam, physical education. I don't know what you guys call it in the States, but PE. And this is for my exams, or you know, when you then qualify to go into college and all that sort of stuff. So it was a really big deal to me, especially PE, being a pro soccer player. Like I wanted to get an A, you know, and I wanted to go on and potentially become a PE teacher. Or at one point, I was going to run for a collegiate degree in the States. I was going to come over and do like a scholarship, and again, didn't pan out. But that's where my kind of goals were at this point. And so it was a really big deal to me. But for 6 months leading up to it, I couldn't play my sport, which was golf. I'd chosen to do golf because I couldn't do soccer at the time because of bad ankle injury. So I was chosen to do golf. And for 6 months up to that, I just couldn't do it at all. I couldn't swing a club. Like I had this really bad wrist injury where I was actually playing golf and I chopped down. And anyway, my wrist was like completely buggered. So for like 6 months, I could barely lift a glass with my right hand, never mind swing a golf club. So it came to the very last day that I had to do this physical exam, or else my PE teacher was going to mark me down for 0. I was going to fail, and I was like, "Oh, here we go! Like I can't have that."
Really, and that was not even your they could handle as like having interest.
Yeah, so I had to show up, and I remember the night before it, I saw this video again on Christian Instagram. I was starting to get into it more. I think it was like April 21st, 2022, and I remember watching this video, and it said that if you've ever doubted that God is real, you should just ask Him. So I was like, well, here I am sitting at the top of my stairs out there, and I was like, God, I don't even know who you are. I don't know what you are. I don't even know if you're real. I said, but if you are, would you just show me? You know, would you show me? And I finished it off with, show me by taking away my wrist pain, just so I can do this exam. Just so I can do this exam. Okay, so fast forward a couple hours, I get to the golf course, swing the golf club on the first tee, ready to go, thinking this is going to be so bad, I can barely swing it, and bam, the wrist pain it's no longer there. But 2 hours before, as I warmed up, it was still there. It wasn't excruciating painful, but it was still there, where it was like, you know, 6, 7 out of 10 discomfort level, you know. So anyway, swinging the first tee, disappeared, completely gone. And then that moment I was like, wow, you know, I almost couldn't believe it. So I managed to finish my exam, played all 4 holes that was needed. I got 29 out of 30 on the score, so I passed my exam. I got an A+. Like everything was great, you know. And then after I walk off the golf course, and the pain comes back. I pick out texting my phone. I'm texting my mom, "Hey mom, can you come pick me up?" Pain comes back. And so in that moment, I remember thinking, what did I say? Why is this came back? If God's real, then why is this came back? And I remember the exact prayer I prayed was, God, if you're real, would you take it away just for this exam? Just for the exam, nothing else. So before it, I had the pain. During it, it was gone. And then after it came back. And it was such a specific prayer. I said, just for this. Take it away just for this. Don't take it away for the rest of my life. Take it away just for this exam so I can complete it. And then when that happened, I remember having such an epiphany light bulb that God must be real, that Jesus must be God. And then I started reading the Bible more. I started diving into it. From there, I started to get sanctified and realized all the old habits I needed to cut off. The Bible preaches against lust. It preaches against gluttony. It preaches against laziness. It preaches against every one of the man's sinful desires that he wants to stay in. And so from there, I started getting super into health as well, because I had these chronic injuries where, like I told you, the wrist injury was really bad, and all these ankle injuries that just wouldn't heal. I was like, why is all my friends are out playing soccer 3, 4, 5 nights a week, and here I am just stuck with these injuries, you know? And I remember at the time we went on this like vegan diet tangent where I was researching every diet under the sun. I was like, this must be the one. You know, a couple months felt good, and then a year went past and I felt utterly crap. I hadn't had meat for like a year or two, and I had like any fat. Like I was trying to cut everything out, and I just remember like that was like the low point for me in health. Where like the low point for me in my life was like when I was addicted to lust and gluttony and all this stuff back in 2021 before I cracked the Bible. At the end of like 2022, when that came around, it was like after all the health research I'd done, I thought everything was right, but what I didn't realize that everything I'd learned over the last year was completely wrong. And so I remember, going deeper into the Bible, and I was reading like, the book of Leviticus and Deuteronomy. It talks about how the ancient people, they used to sacrifice goats or cows or these, oxen and all these things. I was like, why are they sacrificing animals, but like also eating them at the same time? So I did some research and realized that it was like because the animals are a gift from God. They're they used to give the animal fat used to get sacrificed like on the altars, and I thought, like, why the animal fat? So I researched that and realized that the fat of an animal is actually the most nutritionally like dense part. It's actually one of the most things that's got the most nutrients in it for humans. So I was like, why did they give it away then? I was like, because God deserves the best. Like God deserves the best part. And so as I started reading the Bible more, I realized that the Bible goes against veganism. Some people will debate me on that. Some people might take offense to that, but
that's why it's your life, and you can do it how you want, as long as you commit to the lifestyle.
Exactly. Yeah.
And making sure you get the nutrients. That's the key thing, is getting those nutrients.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, like, especially the version of the vegan diet that I was on was most of it was a lot of raw fruits and veg. Some of it was kind of processed vegan stuff. So again, I'm not preaching solely against veganism, but the vegan diet that I was on was terrible. It was even worse than anything else. Then I dove even deeper in it in like 2023 up until now, where I'm still researching and realizing what's the best. I realized that God's design is the best, where it's you have your meats, fish, chicken, you have eggs, you have milk, all the stuff that comes from animals. We have honey, all these sorts of stuff. Then you have your fruits and veg as well. There's nothing wrong with fruits and veg. People will preach against fruits and veg. People who do like extreme diets like carnivore, which again I think is ridiculous. It comes to having a healthy, whole, balanced diet. As long as you're in shape and you feel healthy. Like again, if some people are on carnivore and they feel great, that's fine. Fair enough. I'm not going to judge anybody. People feel good on veganism, that's fine. I just know what worked for me, and what works for most of the guys I talk to is eating more stuff that's got more nutrients in it. That's whole foods, that's based on animals. And again, it comes back to like this primal instinct, which I like to refer to a lot as like our ancestors wouldn't have searched the mountains all day long looking for a couple of hazelnuts that they could crack open. They'd had their spear and their bow and arrow, and they'd have been shooting at geese, or they'd have been shooting at reindeer, or like moose, and like all the stuff that's in your area. Like again, it's different. Every native place tends to have it's different. Like there's no bison here, there's no moose here, but like you go to Canada and you find it everywhere. So it's about killing what's in your area to eat what's there. So I think a lot of people miss that conception, where we live in this golden age of consumerism, where you can just go and eat whatever you want. Crisps, hot chocolates, pizzas, like it's just ready-made, ready for you to go. There's no effort, there's no sacrifice. And again, you can work your way around it. Like I'm not saying never shop again. I like farmers markets with fresh fruits and veg, with fresh meats, with yogurts, cheeses. Like that's such a vibe. Like I'm not opposed to paying people for my food at all. But when you then waste your money, it's almost when you start paying people to give you cancer, or paying people to give you diabetes, like these super commercialized industries where everything's processed sugar, everything's artificial sweeteners, everything's colorings and dyes and preservatives that your body wasn't designed to ever handle. You end up with chronic health conditions. And I know because I had them. I had chronic injuries. I had anxiety and depression, which are linked to nutritional deficiencies. I had severe gut issues, constipation. Like I went through all that sort of phase. So that my health journey and my faith journey they're completely interlinked now. And I've connected with a lot of people who've had the same, who they struggle with health. They came to Christ, and then He kind of showed them the way. And I remember praying every single night. As soon as I came to Christ, I said, God, would you just show me what path to take with this health stuff? Like, I don't know anything. I'm foolish. I'm a fool. Like, just you take the reins and you show me, and I'll just keep showing up. So I kept on researching, kept on finding the truth. And I remember at the end of the prayers, I would always pray, just show me the way so I can show it to somebody else, so I can help other people who've been in the same position as me. And it's weird to say it, but now I have a business where I coach Christian men to get in shape, to be healthy, to be full of energy, to be full of vibrancy, to feel disciplined, to feel driven, to show up and do what they're called to do, which is be good husbands and fathers and leaders and mentors for the next generation. So we don't need to learn all this over again. We don't need to have the 75-year-old men who can't remember a thing, and then the next generation's then got to pass it all on and remember it, and the cycle repeats itself. So I truly believe that the devil has masked everything that God created. Heading mainstream media, we'll see now that marriage is bad. Like, you shouldn't get married. All these red pill guys that tell you, oh, you shouldn't get married, you shouldn't have kids. Nick Fuentes is making a rise. Oh, you shouldn't have kids. Like, I'm totally against kids. It's like, okay, the first commandment is be fruitful and multiply. I think it's like Genesis 3:27. be fruitful and multiply. It's a biblical command. So no matter what Nick Fuentes or anybody else says, I'm going to be fruitful and multiply. In order to do that, I need to have a wife. I need to have family, you know? So everything that God preaches goes against the mainstream narratives. And that's when I realized that the devil is not only in everything else, the media, he's also in the health. He wants people sick. He wants people depressed. Because I know for myself, when I was sick and depressed and overweight and couldn't think and low energy and all the stuff that I went through and all these injuries, I would say, I would doubt, like, if God is real, then why am I in so much physical pain? Why am I in so much mental pain? Why am I not healthy? Why can't I do what other people can do? You know, and I presume that's probably the same for a lot of people, especially people who, you know, they have their children are born and they have cancer within 2 or 3 or 4 years. Like, I can imagine they sit there and go, you know, if God is real, then why is my child been given cancer? But it's like, it comes back to what we as humans are now evolving to be like. We're evolving to be sick. We're having children that are sick. They're prone to becoming sick because the adults are sick that are conceiving the children, and it passes it on. Because, like, again, the whole big deal with, like, you inherit your mitochondria, which is like how your body functions and your energy and your cells, from your mum. If your mum's sick and she's not healthy, you're not going to be healthy, especially growing up. So then we have this repeated cycle where people doubt God and think God's giving kids cancer when it's not. It's our choices. We're choosing to fall for this mainstream nutritional advice, which is eat what you want. It's cool to be fat. You know, just go to the doctors. He'll give you medicine. Blah, 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 blah. And again, I'm not anti-doctor, like, at all. I'm just saying, like, that's the mainstream, is like, yeah, you have a symptom, just take a pill. But nobody questions, okay, what can I do instead of taking the pill? You know, like, what can I do rather than, you know, for my diabetes? Like, I would suggest, okay, lose some weight, maybe walk some more, cut down your sugar, right, incorporate more healthy carbs, cut out the toxic carbs. You know, there's always steps we can take before we go and take pills and just think the pills are going to save us. Again, because that's what my granddad did. He thought, oh, I'll take these pills, you know, and I'll be fine. It doesn't work like that, you know? So,
well, it's hard because everyone wants to have that magic pill, where if you look at any research article, it's not just the pill. It's
exactly,
you know, maybe taking some medication and, like you said, going for a walk, getting exercise.
Yeah.
Exercise has been documented to help against depression, anxiety tremendously. It does help a lot. And if you seek out therapy, it's also therapy, medication, techniques. It's learning to take care of yourself and putting a lot of effort into taking care of yourself, because it's hard to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Exercising, eating right, learning to say no to those unhealthy foods, especially if you're focusing on more of the whole foods and the healthy foods and good meats, good proteins. I'm glad you mentioned fruits and vegetables, because I know there's a lot of people who don't like them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, focus on what's going to give you the most optimized energy, the most optimized clarity of your mind.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's like, if you don't feel good, you need to change something, you know? Like, correct. If you're on the carnivore diet and you feel great, that's fine. If you then hit the carnivore diet for 5 years down the line and you don't feel good anymore, maybe switch it up. You know, I think everybody lives in this one-dimensional where they're like, I'm right and you're wrong. Like, carnivore's right, or vegan is right, or I'm, you know, like, I know my way is the truth and I'm going to... It's like, okay, that might work for you, but give it 5, 10, 15 years, you might not be saying the same thing, you know? So it's like, find what works for you. If what your diet doesn't work for you, you feel lethargic, you feel tired, you can't focus, you're overweight, you're out of shape, like, you need to change something up. If you're in shape, you feel healthy, you feel vibrant, and you're doing different stuff, that's fine. Some people can get away with, you know, going out on weekends and drinking some alcohol or having a soda every now and again. It's not a big deal. But if it becomes this consistent thing where every single day you need a soda to function, or you need an energy drink to function, or you need 3 cups of coffee to function, then you have an underlying issue where you can't focus without it, or you can't have energy without it. And you need to address the underlying issue rather than just keeping on covering it all up and expecting that, oh, one day I'm going to wake up and have so much energy because I drink 3 cups of coffee every day. It's not, again, it's not how it works. But if people feel great, don't change it. But until you do, stick with it. And if you come to a point where you don't feel good anymore, you need to change something.
Well, you hit the bullseye right there, addressing the underlying issue.
Yeah.
And that's something that, if you look at, there's a whole science called decision making. And a lot of times what happens with decision making, we're looking at a lot of times surface level questions. Why don't I feel good? You know, what's going on with my body and different things like that. Well, really, we got to ask the real questions that really dive deep into what is causing it, what's causing those decisions to be made.
Exactly. Yep. That's what it comes to.
I'm glad that you're doing that you're glad, you know, that you're going out there and trying to help men, you know, especially Christian men, of what is not going well. Especially when you have your own story that you just talked about, of going through a lot of struggles that a lot of men go through. isolation, feeling alone, addicted to porn, feeling this hopelessness. Like, what's the
Mhm.
point? I'm going to wake up
Mhm.
miserable every day, and I'm scared of daylights of every little movement and every little thing in life.
Mhm. Yeah, that pretty much sums me up. And like now I have this healthy, strong, muscular body, not so I can look in the mirror and think, wow, I did it. I achieved the dream body, because that'll never ever satisfy me. There'll always be somebody else who has got more muscle than me. There'll always be
Mhm.
somebody else who's got more money in their bank account. So that stuff doesn't satisfy making the money or having muscles or being in shape.
Right.
Now, is it good to look at yourself in the mirror and think, you know what, I'm in good shape? Yes, but I don't do it so I can stare at myself and glorify myself. I do it every time before I work out. I pray, Lord, I just want to glorify you with the body that you've given me. I want to steward it well. I want it to be in shape. I want it to be disciplined. And like again, people used to ask me like around the house, like, can you come and help me with this? And I'd be like, no, I physically can't, because like I could get injured. I lived in this constant fear state, like I might injure myself or I've got an injury.
Right.
I can't do it. Now somebody asks me to lift something, I'm like, yes. Like, and you ever need anything, like I'm your guy. Like, you just ask me, happily do it. Like I spent so many years on the sideline being the guy who felt rejected because he couldn't do anything. He couldn't lift stuff. He was too fat. He was too out of shape. He was too, all these things, too full of injury, too full of sickness and disease, that he just wasn't functioning as a man. And as a man, like, again, the Bible says, stand firm, be strong, and act like men. We're called to act like men. And a man is somebody who sacrifices himself to lift things for his family, or sacrifices himself to, make money and pass it on to his family. All these things, they're manly actions. And I just didn't feel like a man at all. I'm only 21. Back then I was like 17, 18, but I believe we have this age of men with mustaches who they're like 35-year-old men, but they still stay at home with their mum and dad, or they play video
Mhm.
games all day, or they're addicted to porn. And again, I'm not slating anybody. I'm not saying I'm perfect at all. I just think we as men were called to act like men. And I know for myself, I never felt like a man doing those things. Never felt like a man hooked on porn or video games, or when somebody asks you to lift something and you can't lift it, you feel completely emasculated. You feel completely feminine. When you have an injured back, or like your body's covered in injuries, you don't feel like a man, because a man's called to be this strong, masculine figure. That the leaders, like, we look through the Bible, like Samson, for example, like
Yeah.
one of the strongest men in the Bible, like got his power from his hair, got his power directly from God. He was just so, I can imagine walking up to Samson and being like, wow, this guy's huge. Like this guy, like, he's completely like gifted from God. He's like 6 foot plus, he's
Yeah.
absolutely jacked, so that's what I imagine biblical men should be like, is to be strong and in every single way, not just physically with muscles, but spiritually as well, mentally, emotionally. Like, those things matter more than becoming physically strong. But the Bible says that training for godliness is better than physical training, but they both have their purpose. You should be in shape physically, but be in shape spiritually more so. And I think they don't come above, like physicality doesn't become above being connected to Christ. But I believe once you become connected to Christ, it's your duty to become physically fit. And I believe there's no better way to serve the kingdom of God, in my opinion.
Well, and the more we can do that mind, body, spirit, and that's what they always focus about, the three in one, and really focusing on how everything's interconnected, and really being strong in that discipline, and learning how, like you said, in your whole journey, you didn't know anything. You were a little bit of a fool. You didn't know, do I follow this? Do I follow this? Versus
Yeah.
really learning to do your homework and make up your own mind. And
Yeah.
this is what this whole podcast is really focused on. Not necessarily saying one way is the right way. It's saying what's going to be effective for you. And really, the most important question becomes is teaching people how to think and think critically, which has really gone away.
Yeah, exactly. I made a reel on Instagram yesterday or the day before, talking about think for yourself. And if there was one piece of advice I can give my younger self 5, 6 years ago, growing up, it would have been think for yourself. Everybody, the point of the reel was, everybody wants to tell you how to live your life. They want to tell you how to
Right.
be a man is sex and women and money and status and cars and mansions. That's being a man according to the world. They want to tell you that it's fine to be overweight, or you should do this thing to lose weight, or everybody wants to give you your own opinion and just keep on preaching to you because you're wrong and I'm right. Everybody you see online is, I'm right, you're wrong, you should listen to me. Um,
Exactly. Where people get lost. Do I do the red pill? Do I do the blue pill? Where's
exactly,
the purple pill? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
I know we
So
need kind of money to survive in this world, and we also
yeah,
need food, and
yeah. So
so
it's this constant stimulation of, I don't know
yeah,
what to do.
exactly.
So
That's the way to
you
put
do
it.
nothing. You go back to the video games, you go back to the porn or the alcohol or the nights on the town or the hookups. Like, you just, because it's too much. So my best piece of advice, again, to anybody listening to this or anybody that saw my reel is was think for yourself. Find what God has called you to do. Find what is God's creation. Back it up with science if you feel like it. I don't feel the need to back much up with science if it's backed up by God. I just feel the need to be connected so much to God's design that science is kind of outweighed, because a lot of science goes against God, and I think we should trust God more than we trust the science. We spoke about that earlier. But again, everybody wants the quick fix as well, like we spoke about before. Everybody wants, like, Ozempic is on the rise. Right. What do they mention? Like, the people who are now can hardly see because they've gone blind from Ozempic. Again, that's like some headlines. I've seen that headline, like people genuinely losing their eyesight, and either one of their eyes, they're getting blurred vision because they're taking Ozempic, because you're promoted as this weight loss miracle drug. Again, weight loss and then drug, they don't go together. It's somebody's selling you a big bag of lies, or somebody's telling you a bad bill of goods where they want you to take their thing because it makes them money. My clients come to me and I want them to lose weight, build muscle, change their life so they can go on and get on with the rest of their life. So I don't want them to be taking my program for the rest of their life. It's a one-time investment to get to where they want to be. Then they have the tools they need. It's not like, again, testosterone replacement therapy. Again, massive over the last 10 years. Nobody looks into the side effects. Nobody looks into the, shuts down your body's natural production of testosterone. Some people say that it shrinks their testicles. The list goes on of stuff that people just jump in because they're said, well, triple your testosterone in 30 days. I mean, what kind of man doesn't want triple their testosterone in 30 days? So
yeah, and you have to be so careful, and that's why you always have to make sure you're with a doctor, because did you ever hear about Joe Castatics?
I did not know.
So there's a guy, I believe his name was Joe Castatics. He was a really big guy on Instagram and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy, instead of using your chest, instead of it going up and down, it would the veins would go on the side, all the muscles would go on the side. And so, he passed away and he was 30.
She was.
Yeah, he was taking 12, I want to say, don't quote me on this or anything, but 12 different types of peds, different steroids.
Jeez.
And I remember watching a documentary about those bodybuilders, and some of them knew that they weren't going to make it past 40, 50.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just scary if you ask me. That you want to get as big as you can. Cool. It's your life. You live the life you want. And that comes with the consequences. And I really want to hit on a point they said, you don't want people in your coaching program forever, because that way you're not creating people to be dependent on you for the rest of your life, which I think is very empowering, honestly.
Exactly. That's again, coming back to the traditional system that we've been sold over the last 50, 75, 100 years is just take metformin or take statins to lower your cholesterol for the rest of your life. That's what people say, is you're going to be like this for the rest of your life. My own mother was told she'd be in a wheelchair at 40 for the rest of her life. She's now here at 48 and she doesn't need a wheelchair. She's not 100% healed. She still has her issues, but it's just, my point is that again, I'm not anti-doctor, but a doctor who says, hey, take this for the rest of your life, I question them sincerely without them researching, because you go into the doctor's office and they see 15, 20, 50 people a day. It's not their fault. Right. They're crammed in, they're sold this education, and they have to solve your issue within 5 minutes and give you oh yeah, no big deal, we'll take your temperature, we'll take your heart rate, okay, just give me your symptoms, okay, blah, 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 blah. There's no lifestyle check. There's no question of how much sunlight do you get. There's no question of what's your diet like. There's no question of how much physical activity do you do. There's no question of, have you got any unresolved trauma? Have you got anxiety, depression? Is there anything that complicates that? There's no questions of, what habits do you have in your life that are holding you back? How often do you drink alcohol? How much is that coming? There's none of that. There's not a lifestyle audit. So whenever, again, coming back to my clients and what I see with other coaching programs is, when guys come on, I go through the whole lifestyle. What does it look like? How often do you drink alcohol? How many glasses it is if you do drink? What, you got any other potential addictions? Is it weed? Is it nicotine? Is it porn? All these stuff that plays into the health of a body. We're talking mind, body, spirit. So it's all connected. And people, like I said, traditional route is just take statins to lower your cholesterol for the rest of your life. But I want guys to come in and say, hey, I'm on statins, I'm on metformin, can you help me get off them? I'm not a doctor, but I can give you my best advice. I still think you should go to a doctor and get checked, XYZ. Again, to most people listening, I'd recommend a naturopathic doctor who would give you, let's say, rather than giving you painkillers like paracetamol or Tylenol in the US, they'd give you curcumin or turmeric, something that's a natural herb that has also been proven in God's creation to heal. Again, I think Revelations 2, it talks about how the herbs shall be given for the healing of the nations. So we look at all these herbs, and again, we're talking like apothecaries and all the people that have studied herbology. Like a lot of the herbs, a lot of the medicine we have today are based on herbs. A lot of them have herbs in them, but they also have a bunch of other junk that I would agree is probably not necessarily not good. So I go straight to the source. I say, okay, well, I will get myself a naturopathic doctor who's a licensed doctor who also knows more about my blood work, more about my metabolism, more about my hormones, what's going on, how I can adjust this, and this. Like as myself, I live by the phrase, the best coaches have coaches. So like I just started working with a health coach myself who is a level deeper than me. So he's into like we spoke about, the mitochondria of the cell, the metabolism, the hormones. Okay, because I still have some unresolved issues from all the years of like processed junky diets that I was on. I still have some stuff.
I can't imagine that stuff.
So I'm like, I still have some issues I'd like to heal. I'm working with this guy over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and I believe there's a lot of stuff I'll take away from that. But there's a lot more than meets the eye when it comes to health. People will look at like your average gym bro who's in shape, he's shredded, he's maybe 8% body fat, but nobody questions, okay, what's going on with the guy's hormones? He's maybe got 200 testosterone, but he's on TRT, so it's 1200. Nobody questions what's his metabolism like, what's his gut like, because he eats like 6 meals a day of super high protein. And again, all these people want to slam you in a bucket and just say, do this, do this, do this. But it's like, do what works for you. I always recommend all my guys get their blood work done, because that's the only way you will physically know what's actually going on. You can't, like, you can look at me and think I'm pretty healthy, but I could probably run you through 7 or 8 markers in my blood work that aren't dialed in, where I'm like, okay, that's a bit weird. Like, why is that? Why is this? Why is this? So again, I'm not trying to like overwhelm anyone with information, but what I'm saying is don't trust everybody you see on the internet who's got a 6-pack and got muscles, because you've got no idea what their insides are like. You've got no idea if they've got diarrhea, constipation, severe gut issues, Crohn's disease. You've got no idea if their body is starting to decay, starting to produce cancerous cells. You've got no idea what's going on with anybody. So I only trust people that are based on biblical health, that are based on, like we spoke about, whole foods, sunlight, not living outside more than you can, getting natural light in your eyes, living by this biblical principles, but also practicing gratitude, prayer, spending time with God, all these things that kind of come into it. And I believe, because like we spoke about, like the guys on steroids, becomes this egomaniac show. Like, how big can I get my muscles? How big can I get my muscles whilst keeping my 6-pack or my 8-pack? Becomes this ever-seeking. Again, you can be Christian and be a bodybuilder. Like, I'm not saying that, but I know some guys. But what I'm saying is that when it becomes this super idol, where guys who don't know Christ, they want to worship their bodies, and then they're out the game by 35. No wife, no kids. Like, what's the point in life? Like, you only get one shot, and my goals is to get married, have a bunch of kids, and provide for them and watch them grow up. Like, the true meaning of life, in my opinion, is not to be jacked and have muscles, but having muscles and being in shape and being fit and being able to sprint and run and lift and jump allows me to not only serve my God, but also serve my future family, my current family, anybody who needs me to lift stuff, to act like a man, to build stuff. That allows me to do that, rather than people saying, hey, can you help me today? And I'm like, well, I could list you through all the injuries I've got, but I can't do it. I've got like no energy. I've got brain fog. I'm a little bit depressed today. I'll be honest, I can't really be bothered. Like going past, like, men aren't called to do that. I don't believe. I believe men are called to, be strong in every single manner, like we spoke about.
Well said. I mean, honestly, couldn't say it better than that. Just take care of yourself, and I like how you're really trying to be intentional about taking care of your whole body and everything, and always going to the experts and working with them and finding out what's in the blood, because life is in the blood. And that way you can't know what to change unless you get that looked at. Yep,
exactly. Yeah, it's all about underlying what's actually going on. No quick fixes, no give me some Tylenol, no give me some TRT. Like, we need to figure out, why do you need TRT in the first place? We need to try some actual natural interventions before you go on TRT. That's what I would suggest. Again, people would sit there, and some ego lifters in the gym space will sit here and, if they listen to this, probably laugh, but that's fine. I'm not here to debate anybody. I'm just here to give what's worked for me, what works for my clients, what I see changing people's lives, and what I want to, change some people's lives through this podcast. And it's like, if you have the discipline to implement this yourself, go and implement it. Start with a whole foods diet. Start with walking 60 to 90 minutes a day, getting more sunlight. Again, it's winter, so it's hard for a lot of people, especially me being in the UK. It's a rare sight in the sun. So start with the basics. Whole foods, walk more, lift 3 to 4 times a week. Don't overkill yourself. I work out myself personally, 35 to 40 minutes a session, 3 times a week. I just go super hard for it. The other times I will walk, I will rock, I'll put a backpack on, like all the stuff that's going to build a physical strong body that can jump, that can run, like all these things. Don't overcomplicate it. Health is supposed to be simple. It's not supposed to be 100 different supplements a day. It's not supposed to be biohacking your body. It's not supposed to be all these different pills. It's not supposed to be protein powder supplements. Oh, I haven't hit my protein goal for the day. I haven't hit my macro goal for the day. Like our ancestors gone past have thrived more than we're like the sickest generation to ever live over the last 100 years. We're like the sickest human beings to ever walk the planet. Yet we spend the most money on health. We have the most health advertising. We have allegedly the best healthcare. We have the best scientists in the world. We have the best interventions. Yet we're still the sickest people, and that's because people are not doing the basics. They don't do the basics. Everybody knows what the basics are. Like we spoke about whole foods, walking more, stop sitting down on the couch, instead choose to go for a walk. Like it's basic stuff. Nobody's asking you to go and take a vitamin C injection or take all these supplements and blah, 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 blah. Just do the basics, what's right. If you have the discipline to implement it yourself, just implement it. If you don't, I urge somebody to get yourself a coach or a mentor. I've had 2 or 3 coaches in my life that have changed my life. One about how to scale my business, one about how to learn sales, and now one about my health. Every one of them has been the best investment I've ever made in my life. So it's all about, if you can do it yourself, do it yourself. If you need help, then guys like me and other guys online, we're here to get you to where you want to be. And sometimes it's better to bite the bullet now and invest in yourself rather than waiting 5, 10, 15 years and you need to pay a hospital bill. It's 5K or 10K, or you need heart, like surgery on your open heart. It's like, I just prefer you get in shape now, but just do the basics right.
And Norm, that's why I'm glad you said that, because if you're a man out there, a Christian man, looking at yourself, want to lose a little bit of weight, check out Norm. All his socials and everything would be in the comments below. And we always like to honor our guests who take their time to come on this podcast to share their stories and how they overcame. And so if you're a Christian or think about Christian and you want to improve your life and lose a little bit of weight, because, hey, it's almost the new year. And I think it's time. I know a lot of people say, well, it's always a cliche, wait till the new year. Well, sometimes people need a fresh start. So if you want to get in the new year, go check out Norm, because he's going to help you develop a plan. He's going to sit down with you and really make sure he takes care of you as you work to strive to lose weight, get healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually. And if you got value of this video and you're like, wow, yes, I'm ready to take action, then like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video so we can help as many men as possible reclaim their lives, rebuild their lives, be a life and a scholar. And we also have the Men's Lifeline Discord group that meets Mondays at 7:30 p.m. EST. So if you need some help, want to work together, glad to have you. Norm, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been great. Very smart guy. And you have a bright future. So just again, I'm glad that you're investing in yourself to have some coaches in your corner to help support you in your journey. So hope you have a blessed day, my brother. And just thank you again for coming on.
You too. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I hope anybody who listens to this got a ton of value. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just like I said, do the basics, cut out the noise, and just do what works for you. And if you ever need me, you know where to find me.
That's right. So let's get back to the basics. And that's what people always say. Let's get back to the basics. Day 1 is today. So let's go do that. And I hope everyone has a blessed day today.